The restaurant lights shimmered like golden stars against the glass walls, but inside her heart, it was all darkness. Evelyn Hart sat by the window, her wheelchair tucked neatly beneath the table, her elegant black dress hiding the faint trembling of her hands. Outside, life was moving, people were laughing, waiters were rushing, but for her, time had stopped 2 years ago. The world called her the Iron CEO, a woman who built an empire before 35. But behind that steel title was a broken woman, one who hadn't stood on her feet since the accident that took both her mobility and her fiancé on the same night. And tonight, for reasons she didn't fully understand, she had agreed to a blind date arranged by her best friend. As she looked at her reflection in the restaurant's window, she wondered what kind of man would sit across from her. A stranger meeting a paralyzed woman on a blind date. Probably someone who would fake a smile, talk politely, and leave early. Just another reminder of how far she'd fallen from the woman she once was. Backhand index pointing right. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the beauty of unexpected love, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. This story might just remind someone that broken hearts can still beat strong. The clock ticked past 7. Her date was late. She sighed softly, her hand grazing the silver pendant she always wore, the last gift from her fiancé. She almost called her driver to take her home when the door burst open, letting in a gust of cold air and a man hurrying in, clearly nervous, holding a single, wilted daisy. He looked out of place among the polished suits and pearls, his jacket slightly worn, his shoes scuffed, and his hair still damp from the rain. But there was something about his eyes, soft, tired, yet honest, that made her pause. His name was Daniel Brooks, a single father who had been through his share of storms. He wasn't supposed to be here tonight. In fact, he didn't even know this date was for Evelyn Hart, the famous CEO. His sister had signed him up for the same dating app Evelyn's friend had used, hoping to pull him out of the loneliness he'd been drowning in since his wife's death 3 years ago. When he realized who was sitting at the table, the Evelyn Hart, he froze, embarrassed, unsure if he should even sit down. Evelyn noticed his hesitation and managed a faint smile. "You're late," she said softly. "And that flower's half dead." Daniel laughed awkwardly, rubbing the back of his neck. "Yeah, traffic, and budget flowers. Sorry, this is kinda new to me." It wasn't the charming start of a romance movie, but for the first time in a long while, Evelyn laughed. A real, soft laugh that startled even her. As the evening went on, their conversation stumbled and flowed like two rivers trying to meet. He told her about his daughter, Lily, a 7-year-old sunshine who loved to paint and hated vegetables. She told him about her company, her team, her relentless drive before the accident. But she didn't mention the wheelchair, not yet. And he didn't ask. Instead, he looked at her like she wasn't defined by it. That small, unspoken grace began to melt the invisible walls she had built around her heart. When the waiter came to pour water, Daniel stood up quickly to help, instinctively reaching for her chair to pull it closer. It was then he realized she couldn't move her legs. His hand froze midair, his expression shifting from confusion to quiet understanding. He didn't pity her. He simply nodded, placed the napkin gently by her side, and sat down again as if nothing had changed. And in that moment, something deep inside Evelyn shifted. For years, people had looked at her with sympathy, sorrow, or discomfort. But this man looked at her with something entirely different: normalcy, respect. They stayed in that restaurant long after the plates were cleared, lost in stories, laughter, and memories of pain that somehow felt lighter when shared. When they finally left, the rain had stopped. Daniel offered to walk her to her car, holding the umbrella over her even though he was getting soaked. And when she thanked him, he just smiled. "Don't thank me. It's been a while since I laughed this much." That night, Evelyn couldn't sleep. For the first time in years, her chest didn't feel as heavy. She didn't want to hope, but she couldn't help it. Days turned into weeks. Coffee meetups became long conversations. Daniel would visit her office sometimes, always with Lily in tow, who brought tiny drawings that said, "To Miss Eve," in colorful crayon. The little girl's laughter filled the cold corners of Evelyn's home, painting color where silence used to live. Slowly, Evelyn found herself opening up, not just to Daniel, but to life again. She began to smile for reasons she couldn't explain, but healing is never a straight road. One evening, When Daniel's car broke down, Evelyn insisted on visiting him instead. It was the first time she'd been to his modest apartment, filled with children's drawings, books, and the faint smell of homemade soup. But what caught her attention was a framed photo of Daniel's late wife, a woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile that a quiet ache spread through Evelyn. She realized that while she was learning to live again, Daniel was still learning to let go. Later that night, as she sat in her car waiting for her driver, she couldn't stop her tears. Maybe she had been foolish to think someone like him could love someone like her, a woman whose life was stuck between past and present. Daniel noticed her silence for days. When he finally asked what was wrong, she told him everything: her fears, her insecurities, her belief that he deserved someone whole. Daniel listened quietly, then said the words that would stay with her forever. "Evelyn, wholeness isn't about walking. It's about feeling alive again. And you make me feel alive." That night, under a fading sunset, she wept in his arms, not out of sadness, but release. For years, she had believed that her story ended the night of her accident. But here was proof that life was still waiting for her, in the simplest moments, in the warmth of a little girl's hug, in the eyes of a man who saw her beyond her scars. Months later, Evelyn found herself doing something she never thought she would again: standing before a crowd. Her company had organized a charity gala to fund spinal injury research. With Daniel and Lily in the front row, she delivered a speech that silenced the entire hall. "I once thought strength meant never breaking," she said, her voice trembling. "But I learned that real strength is in rebuilding yourself from the pieces left behind. Sometimes, life doesn't give us what we expect. It gives us who we need." When she finished, Daniel stood up, clapping with tears in his eyes. After the event, he took her hand quietly. "You know," he said, "that blind date was supposed to be my worst idea ever." Evelyn smiled through her tears. "And it turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to both of us." Months turned into a year. Evelyn didn't walk again, but she learned to dance in her own way, through hope, love, and laughter. Daniel rebuilt his faith and happiness, and Lily found in Evelyn not just a friend, but a mother figure. Their home was small, imperfect, sometimes chaotic, but it was filled with warmth that made every scar worth it.